Good afternoon. We'll call to order the Town of Lake Lure Town Council regular meeting Tuesday, May 9th at 5 p.m. And we are delighted to have all of you here. If you would please rise for the invocation.
Father, we thank you for another blessed day. Thank you for the advent of spring as we move into summer. Pray for safety and fun on our waters, this beautiful lake this summer. Be with our emergency services personnel and emergency workers for any issues that arise throughout the year. May your hand of blessing and grace be upon us this summer season. Thank you for all the many blessings of life. May your healing hand be upon us for those that are going through difficult times. And let us lead with grace, dignity, not only for the decisions made tonight, but the decisions that will affect generations to come. In your name we pray. In your grace we thank you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to add one item to the agenda, Labella Task 6 Proposed Revision 2, and that would be new business item L. Otherwise, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then the agenda stands approved as edited. All right, so that's Labella Task 6 for L. Well, the best news today is the lake's up, right? Yes, absolutely. So looking out your window, you see water, water everywhere, right? So we are all so thrilled about that. And it will remain up until some time in the future. And I only say that because
Until it's not.
normally we try to get that information out in June, late June or July, because everybody needs to make plans. So we are in the process of ensuring that we have the lake down the appropriate amount of time, but not more than what we needed. And so right now, that's decision's still not made, but we will let you know because all of us, whether we have a business or we just would like know whether our grandchildren will be out of the house and on the lake when they visit us, we need to know that. So we will let you know more, and I would say either, maybe not by the first town council meeting in June, but certainly by the middle of June, and Laura Creegee, as usual, will put that on the website, so you can wait with bated breath until you see that there. But in the meantime, enjoy the gorgeous water. So, thank you all for coming. We're always so glad when there are people out here that we can look at, and may I just give a big happy birthday to Stephen Ford. Yes. Because we are so happy he was born, is the way I have to put that, right? So this is going to be a really busy month for us, not just this month, but next month, because we're in budget month, and that was a little bit delayed because of the sort of meandering through property appraised values, okay, by the county, but that will certainly come to fruition pretty soon, and so it's going to be a busy month to make those determinations, and we'll be letting you know. It'll probably come to an end on, I believe, June 28th.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is going to be the public hearing, which is, I think, the second to last day that you can do it, all right, because the new budget goes into effect June 1st. But we certainly wanted to make sure that we had everything correct. So you can kind of put that on your calendar. I think it's going to be at 5 p.m.
Yes.
5 p.m. so that everybody can be here in the evening. So other dates may come up in the meantime, but that will be the public hearing for the budget. So it has been, as I said, it's been sort of a sketchy little course trying to decide if they were going to use the new improved appraised property values or go back to the old ones. There's a difference, there's a good side for each part of it, okay? But probably they're going to keep the ones from 2016. So there we are on that. That is really all that I have to say in the mayor's communication. 19, excuse me, 19, so sorry. We will move on to the town manager's communication.
Yes, ma'am. I'll move first, as I customarily do, through the departments. We got public services, a couple of points I'll bring out. They are in the middle of continuing smoke testing to identify leaks in the sewer system. This is a part of our AIA study that we've got some grant funds with from the state. And they are also, first round of right-of-way mowing has been started and will be a priority till it's completed as well. Moving forward into community development, they had 30 permits issued for the month of April. This was down a little bit from the previous month. 7 of those were in zoning, 3 lake structures, and 3 land disturbance permits. They had some other business this evening. I'm going to let this evening's meeting, they've got some agenda items for it. That's the other part, so I'm not going to explain that. Moving forward into fire and emergency services, they did participate in active shooter training at AB Tech, and they also completed 413 hours of training during the month, and then performed maintenance on some hydrants in town as well. Moving forward to the police department, they wanted me to make note that all officers have now taken the Lake Patrol and Enforcement class, and this was put on by Officer Tyler Dills, dealing with updated rules and regulations for lake use. And then these classes were held at Town Hall. For Parks and Recreation, they had, as Parks and Recreation always does, they listed out numerous trails that they perform maintenance on. To risk stealing Commissioner Proctor's thunder, Carolina Climbers Coalition had 5 work days on Buffalo Creek and Upper Boulders Trail with 70 volunteers. They had 510 volunteer hours. And then down at the bottom, they had other volunteer items. Not counting that, they utilized a total of 569 volunteer hours. And then once the lake started coming back up again, they've gotten into removing debris, and they did have a fallen tree from the lake bed that they removed prior to the lake coming up. Going into finance, we have an unreconciled bank balance of approximately $10,340,000 for last month, and that the dam fund still holds a balance of approximately $16.5 million. Lastly, for the finance, I think I sent council out an email this week announcing that we've got a new addition coming to the finance department. Miss Melissa Hand will be joining us. She is a Lake Lure resident. She is coming to us from the ABC Commission, and she is going to start on the 22nd of this month. Lastly, for communications, I'm going to say that we had 31 news articles posted, and it was emailed to over 1,985 citizens. We had 65 Facebook posts, and they had a post reach of 52,570. And then we are up with the Facebook, I guess the followers for the town of Lake Lure at $19,549. And then for manager, clerk, and admin, we continue to finalize development of new policies and procedures for contracting, purchasing, and procurement. This evening, we will have on the agenda for the electronic payments policy itself. The purchase and procurement policy is still under further review. We're probably gonna have the final draft on the 24th with the recommended adoption of the final policy for the town in June. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As always, a very productive month. That's because we have such a fabulous team, and we're delighted that Steve Ford has some help. Because he's a year older now, and I can factor in, right, if you don't have some help. So, all right, that's perfect. Our next item is a public hearing.
Make a motion, we go into public hearing in regard to ordinance number 23-05-09, amending the Town of Lake Lure Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, parenthetically building and building regulations, close parenthetics, Article 3.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Ms. Perkins?
We are going to hear a staff report from Mike Williams.
Didn't see him hiding back there. You're hard to miss, and I couldn't see you back there.
Didn't work, because I got found.
That's right.
You want the brief one?
Oh, yeah.
We, in the interest of our community, have tried to make it easy to maintain boathouses and docks and lake structures, as well as keep the town and the lake safe. And so one of the things that we identified as being an issue was the problem that we have a one-size-fits-all lake structures ordinance. And so if you're building a boathouse, docks, everything brand new, you've got the same requirements and the same costs as you would have for repairing a dock, replacing decking boards, and having to do some structural work underneath it. So bottom line is, we have come up with a proposal, zoning planning went through it, to create a new category of minor structural repairs that allow somebody to do those minor work without having to get an engineer to draw plans, and a little bit lower fee, and just trying to make it, trying to not discourage anybody from maintaining their boathouse, and just make it easier to work with. So that's the bottom line of what we're doing.
Very succinct. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do we want to?
We'll need to open the public hearing.
I just have one comment.
Yes, sir.
I made a suggestion that was basically what you just said about 12 years ago, and it fell on deaf ears, so
I
I'm
wasn't
glad it
here then.
happened. Now, at least it happened at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've already opened the public hearing.
Okay, well, now that we'll invite people to come in.
So, we'll take one at a time then. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this ordinance number 23-06-09, amending the Town of Lake Lure Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6? Speak now or forever hold your peace, I think is the way that goes, right?
Thank you.
I think we have no one who would like to speak.
So Jim's right, one of the builders in town brought it to our attention, that, you know, they get ready to work on a dock and they just need to replace a joist or just a couple of boards to fix something that's fallen apart. And they have to go through all of the hoops of
An
engineering
expense.
and so on and so on. So the zoning and planning took it, went through it for probably, I think they looked at it for about two meetings to make sure everybody was on the same page, and that's what they came up with, so.
Do you want to make a motion?
Make a motion to, accept the ordinance.
We need to close the public
Oh.
hearing
Oh,
first.
I'm sorry.
Make
Do
a
a
motion to
pub-
close the public hearing.
But see, we're gonna have to do this one too, so do you want to
We
open?
just
the-
reopen
Do you want
now?
to do both, but we can reopen it?
Well, let's just do them one at a time.
Yeah, you gotta do
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's do our motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the
Do I hear
public
a
hearing.
second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Then the public hearing is closed. Now do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor, make a motion, we adopt ordinance number 230509, amending the Town of Lake Lure Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Article 3, as outlined in the agenda.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Contractor, thanks, Skip.
Okay.
So that passes unanimously, the adoption of ordinance number 23-05-09. Do I hear a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Madam Mayor, make a motion, we reopen
Just-
public hearing.
Just open the public.
Or
Or
just
reopen?
open it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, go through.
Ordinance number 23-0509A, amending the Town of Lake Lure Code of Ordinances, Section 6-49 Alpha 12 and Section 36-140 Bravo 5, and adding Section 22-23 Alpha 1 and Section 36-297 to establish double permit fees for projects commenced prior to obtaining permits.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then the public hearing is now open. Mr. Williams, would you like to
This one,
enlighten us again?
I don't know that'll get applause or not, probably should. We have a lot of issues with, people not getting permits. You know, whether they don't know, whether they just don't think it's important, whether they think they can get away with it, whatever it is, we don't know. And you have contractors may point at the homeowner, homeowners may point at the contractor. We in community development, as the enforcement body, have to point at them both, and it's really a hassle. And then we end up with people have already done the work, and it doesn't meet the ordinance, and they're applying for variances, which isn't a good place to be. So, part of what we've tried to work on ways to get people understanding they've gotta have permits and getting them and pulling those permits. So communication is a big one, but this ordinance is going to establish basically a doubled fee for a permit that's pulled for work that's already been done. If you build your house or you build your fence and you don't get a permit, it's gonna show up sooner or later. And you're gonna have to get a permit and you'll pay a double fee on it. And that will work that's gonna be for the zoning permits, it'll be for the lake structures permits, it'll be for the land disturbance permits, which is a really big issue. When you go in and if you grade more than 2,000 square feet, if you disturb more than 2,000 square feet, or 100 feet within 35 feet of the water, you've gotta have a permit there. And we function as a local program for the state of North Carolina DEQ in enforcing that. So it's a big deal. So we wanna do everything we can to get people understanding they gotta get permits, give an incentive with the double fee. So that's what we're doing here.
All right, thank you, Mike, very much. Is there anyone who would like to make a statement? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and share with us.
Debbie Warren, I live at 138 Yacht Island Drive, and I just had a question. At an earlier meeting, you had indicated you were gonna have a meeting with local contractors. Has that taken place yet, or were you waiting to put these in action and then talk to them? Okay, thank you, that's all I need.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
I've been speaking with contractors and felt for some of this.
Come on, Dr. Melito.
I just have a question. I'm Steve Molina, 1412 Poplar Road. And I was just curious if there is going to be a time period on this, like how far back could construction have happened and you might, and it comes to someone's attention, like is it going to be from this point forward this goes into effect, or is it going to be retroactive for a period of time? Just out of curiosity.
Mike, you want to speak to that? Has that been discussed yet?
Not specifically as far as, is there a time frame going back? At some point, it's probably not even worth us going back into it.
I don't think we could go back.
Right. So it would be from
7
this moment
years.
forward, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so we would say basically it's from the moment that it's voted on,
Past,
moving
that
forward.
it's moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, to go after somebody
Yes.
now? No, we're talking about when it comes up now. Somebody is applying for their permit
right,
now
right,
for work that's already been done.
right. Okay, does that answer your question, Dr. Melito?
I was just curious.
We
Okay.
don't have time to go out looking back through the past.
Right,
So-
and I get that. That's my real question.
Okay,
Yeah, but that ends up being work in the past, right? So if somebody did something last year, was not compliant, but now has to apply for a variance because he's out of compliance, that fee would be imposed because he's applying now, after this day, after today. After
That would be, if somebody is selling their house and it shows up that there's modifications, there's additions, and they can't find permits, and that sale, that's where we see it a lot of times, the sale is pending because they don't have
Right.
evidence that
Gotcha.
it's been permitted. The county's not gonna issue a building permit until they have a permit from the town. And so it would go back in that way.
But that could lead to things going back years and years and
Yes,
years.
yes. So the, can we deliberate? So the point of this zoning and planning in the meetings, and you guys, I think we've talked about this before in here, and I know obviously, Michael, we have a lot at those meetings. There's a lot of people that are doing things around here without their permits. And a lot of them are people who know better. Contractors that are doing things and they're pulling permits. Land disturbance, to me, is probably, I think this is cheap when it comes to the amount of money we spend every year to dredge the lake. And then we have people digging without permits and potential runoffs. So the permit, that was the whole point of this, was to start the process of education and making sure that people understand that you gotta come in here first. And to Debbie's point about the builder forum, that is still in the works. Michael and I haven't talked about it a lot, we have a little bit, but we wanna try to come up with a plan. I think we need to get this budget knocked out and get some of these things done, and then we'll have the time to get these guys in here. And, we've talked about maybe a site, a link on the website, you know, so you wanna build a house in Lake Lure. And you click on it, and here's all the places you need to go.
And I would like to offer, because I've had this conversation with the board at the chamber, is we can host and help put that on. So if you're doing budgets and you're really busy, we're doing this whole series of workshops and things, so the contractor conversation came up. So if you need help with that, because you guys are sidetracked, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that we're sidetracked in that, like we got too much to do, but you gotta get all the builders together, you gotta get them in here, we gotta put it together, what do we wanna say, what do we wanna ask, so.
You have to get the word out to handymen who aren't.
Yeah, we wanna try to take the invitation as far as Asheville, so that people who are all around us here that are thinking about coming here to build something, have an opportunity to be here.
Okay. Any more comments?
I do, Madam Mayor. Just a point of clarification for Mr. Melito. Just so you know, today, if we found somebody had done something a year ago, today they'd have to apply for a variance and pay a fee. What this does is just double the fee. So there's no process change. The penalty has doubled as an incentive not to pursue that now in the future. But yeah, somebody would have to apply for a variance anyway.
Like I said, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Down to what was mandated.
Yep.
What are the fees, so the fees are probably relatively modest, right?
They are, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yes. The zoning permits, $250 for for a house, for most
I mean, if it's selling
residential.
a house, that's gonna be high.
Yeah.
So and we're not looking to go back and, be detectives and go out there and find somebody who may have violated the requirement to get a zoning permit. But generally it comes up, as y'all were saying, when somebody needs to have a permit to show that what they built is safe, and that they come to us. So that's part of it. And it's like, I described it, it's not to fix everything, it's not to solve all the problems with people not getting permits. It's just a tool in our tool belt to help remind people, just to put that out there, because people think about double fees.
Mike, one more clarification point. So if you issue a stop work's not completed, but you stopped it, good for them, right? They don't get the double fee because you caught it. They would have to apply for a variance, but they're not subject to the double fee because it's not completed. Is that true?
If the work gets started, it could be.
It needs a permit.
Depends on what's
Yep.
been done.
If they don't have a permit, they gotta
Yeah,
pay
they're
for
working
a
without a
double.
permit.
Yes.
I thought it was for work completed.
No, it's for work
Anything.
that is begun.
Oh, okay, that's different.
Because if we.
That's
if-
different?
This is the way we looked at it.
Okay.
This is what was presented.
Okay,
If somebody wasn't gonna get a permit,
yeah.
and we don't happen on it, we don't get a complaint on it, and we don't do a stop work order, then probably the job will finish, and then they'll go on and they'll live in it, they'll do whatever.
Okay, no, that's why I'm
So that was-
clarifying.
that was-
So it's not work completed. It's
Right.
really work started.
Right.
So from the stop work, and then if you find it in the rears after work is completed, it's that whole time period that would be included. Okay, no, that's good. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah, the essence is you're supposed to have a permit before you start anything. So
Yep.
if you start
Right.
anything, you're not in compliance.
Right.
Yep.
No, I get it. It's just that you had originally stated work completed. So it may not be completed.
And so I
Yeah.
think, I was at that meeting, I think some of it is hopefully to prevent some of these things from
Yeah.
happening. So if the fine is a little bit heftier, it may prevent somebody from doing it, or at least cause them to give a little more thought to it before they decide it's worth whatever the fine was. correct?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Any more
Thanks, ma'am.
discussion from the council or anyone? Then do I hear a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 230509 Alpha, amending the Town of Lake Lure Code of Ordinances, Section 6, TAC 49, Alpha 12, and Section 36-140B5, and adding Section 2223 Alpha 1 to establish double permit fees for projects commenced prior to obtaining permits.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mouthful.
Then ordinance number 23-05-09A passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I know that was a real hard work y'all did, but I think
Yeah,
that's
those
gonna
guys
make a
did a
big
great,
difference.
they did a good job.
Yes, I
Mike
agree
too.
with that.
So,
I agree. So I think, as we move along, and kind of the same thing we're doing with all the different areas, so we focused last year, at least the entire year on the lake regulations, and now we're trying to make sure that all the zoning and ordinances are up to date and are correct and are applicable. So we thank the zoning and the community development department, but also the zoning and planning board. Thank you very much for that. So we'll move on now to our council liaison reports and comments, and we'll start with Commissioner Duster.
So we just talked about everything done at zoning and planning at the last meeting. Moved to the ABC meeting. As you all know, it's moved, it's opened, and Mr. Sales here, our chairman, probably deserves a round of applause for. And I also know that he's sitting there thinking, I don't deserve this, because it really goes to his manager, Trent McGuire. Trent has been awesome. Those guys went above and beyond the call of duty. They really, really did. They did something that we were just laughing. I'm not sure that if Trent was the manager, that it would have gotten done this fast, because Trent's just, he's a force. So they really did a great job. So make sure if you see Trent that you thank him and tell him you appreciate the hard work. And if you've been in there, the store looks great. And
He said he'd be here at 5:30.
who? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, go in and make sure you thank all those guys have done, not just Trent, but everybody that works there.
And
So,
buy something while you're there.
yeah, and buy something, please.
That it?
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Diorio.
Yes, ma'am. So the Board of Adjustments did meet. Basically, they reviewed the two articles that we approved in resolution, was the major order of business this month. The Lake Advisory Board did meet. One of the items that came up, there was a request coming from the community to review the non-resident wake boat requirement, which is you have to be a resident to own and operate a wake boat on the waters of Lake Lure. And it was requested for those folks that actually have a slip on the lake. So that unique group of non-residents that actually have a slip on the lake, they have an annual, why can't they have a wake boat? It was reviewed by the Lake Advisory Board and was determined that we have balance now between power boats and wake boats in general. And they can always review that data in the future, but for right now, they believe the balance to be correct and therefore do not recommend advancing any policy change on the non-resident no wake rule, but it was brought up and
Okay.
worth mentioning. The other thing that is on the agenda, continuing, is fishing permits. A number of fishermen requesting facilitated access to the lake, particularly now during the fishing season. The Parks and Recs Department has developed a process to get fishing permits and have them available to fishermen early in the morning via a lockbox. That process is going well and it's working, but we're gonna do an overall assessment for next year as to a different permitting process and policy for dedicated to fishermen. So
Good.
we're still looking at that.
Early morning fisherman, thank you.
Right, but it is going well. There are fewer fishermen on the lake because of the restrictions, but they're getting on there and the fishing's good. The fishing's very good. That concludes my report, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Do you want to Parks and Recs?
You should.
First of all, the steering committee did not meet this past month. We just meet as needed, and there was no need for us to meet because we're not at a point where we have to make a new decision about how the TDA funds are going to be used for this next year. So more to come on that one when we do meet, which will very probably be in June, I think. Also, I was privileged to sit in on the Parks and Recreation Board, which was both very entertaining and very informational. And it was a delight to be there. And I won't go back through what Mr. Perkins has already given you, all the stats on all the things that have happened with the Parks and Recreation Department and just many, many, many different things. So many volunteer hours, it's almost hard to imagine how many people volunteer. And that's the backbone of a small community, truly. So compliment really the Parks and Recs Department for that. The Parks and Recreation Board did spend some time talking about how sort of their mission and their MO has changed over the years. The Parks and Recs Board, Parks and Recs Department has become larger and more active and has taken over some of the more operational aspects of what the Parks and Recs Board used to do. So a lot of those things are now done by the actual Parks and Recs Department. And so there was a very robust and good conversation about where their mission is moving forward. What is their mission? If those things, if they're not going to be doing those things that they used to do, because truly there was no Parks and Recs Department when the board first started, what is their role? And so there was discussion about the fact that, you know, some boards bring in a lot of money. So was that a question? Was that what defines your relevance as an advisory board? Are you bringing in money? And it clearly is not. I mean, there are some boards which are over money-making sort of projects, if you will, and Parks and Recs Board, you know, really talked about defining their mission, and we talked about that last year when we had the new advisory board information done, and so we talked about the fact that, you know, one of the things that was suggested then for all the boards, but the Parks and Recs Board really embraced it, is coming up with a plan for what they want to do for the next 12 months, sort of over and above what is their mission, but specifically what do we want to accomplish for the next 12 months, and then reporting to the council, which is in our new format too, in retrospect, what did we accomplish last year? So they certainly will be part of the long-range planning in deciding what we do with any part of Lake Lure that is involved in Parks and Recs, whether it is land that we own, our parks, our green space, or any open space. So I thought it was a very good discussion, and I think as they move forward, it clearly defines for them that relevance is not how much the advisory board actually brings in. Relevance is that you're doing what your mission is to do. So I thought it was very productive. I'm sure they'll be glad to have Jim back next week. So that is all of our liaison reports. And so I thank everybody on the advisory boards, as always. These are so critical to us. We have so much expertise in this community, and we can draw on that expertise in any variety of different ways. So thank you all for the time that you put in. It's not just 1 hour a month, as people will tell you if somebody wants to sign up. It's a lot more than that, so we thank you. So we'll move on then to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? If you would like to, if you would simply come up to the podium and state your name and your address, we'd be happy to hear from you for your allotted 3 minutes. Laura Doster, we recognize you, but please state for the record your name.
Laura Doster, 274 Thomas A. Edison Road. I wanted to see if the council has any further information. I think it's Moffett. Our representative has put a bill before the House, and it got passed, to make election years, municipal election years, even years.
It passed the Senate.
It's
in the
passed the
House now.
Senate, it's in the House. Okay, I have it backwards.
It is in the Standing Committee for Rules, Calendars, and Order, or Rules, Order, and Calendar.
Okay,
So I think it's on its second edition there now.
okay.
So
I
we've not
hadn't
heard
looked to see
anything
where it
yet.
was. I didn't know if maybe you guys had heard, so.
I look every day and it's not, hasn't
Okay.
Yep.
moved.
All
But
right.
I'm sure it will in the very near future.
Yeah, it seems like it would make sense,
Yeah.
right?
It does.
Okay,
And there are a ton of bills where
Yeah.
that one is.
Right.
So they're, I would imagine they're methodically going
Yeah.
through it.
yeah, all right, thanks.
You're certainly welcome. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? All right, well, we appreciate comments, and as always, and we thank you for being here, because you're a part of why we do this, big part. We'll move then to item number 8, the consent agenda. Haven't had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. Do we hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as written?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as posted.
All right, second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then the consent agenda is adopted as posted. There is no unfinished business. We were apparently very efficient at the last town council meeting, so we'll move on to new business. Our first item on new business is a request for town council approval to resand the existing town-owned beach located at 2724 Memorial Highway. And that is either you, Mr. Perkins, or,
I'm gonna let Mike Williams handle this.
all right? Poor Mike, we're picking on you.
He should just sit closer to
You
the back.
should try to not hide in the back.
Just need exercise.
Very good.
Seems like every month we have had another proposal to resand the beach here, and that comes from, our ordinance requires that any fill, including sand going into a beach, be approved by town council. And then the Army Corps of Engineers, as you recall, about a year and a half ago, had a big issue with it and came really close to saying no refill, no resanding of beaches. And so we worked out an arrangement with them for existing beaches that they can continue to be resanded. That was their word. They can be resanded with, as long as we have a process for following up on them and keeping up with them. And so we've continued with taking them before the town council, and then they're reported to the Army Corps of Engineers afterwards. So in the same vein as what we've had over the last year and a half, the town beach, Parks and Rec has requested that sand be brought in. And actually, we got our wires mixed up and sand got brought in. And so there was a stop work order informally, I guess.
Against community
a
development.
double fee,
I think
sir.
that's an all-time first, isn't it?
And
Double the fee.
so, yeah,
There's some people laughing over there.
I hope so. But the sand is sitting there, and, you know, they're asking that it would be permitted to spread that sand on the beach down to the shoreline, as we've done on the others. And it would be my recommendation, based on the communications I've had with the Army Corps and with Parks and Rec, that it would be approved.
All right, is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor, just as a follow-up, Mike, I think it would be very helpful if we took that list of existing beaches, get that to the zoning and planning board to say, these are existing beaches, getting in the ordinance, and have a blanket permission to resand the approved existing beaches. And that way, that'll just solidify it, and it's there. And then we can take a look, and anytime anybody wants to add a beach, then we would get involved. But the normal maintenance of a beach should be totally in your purview.
And we've agreed with the Army Corps that there will be no additional beaches added.
Oh,
They don't
okay.
want the beaches.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay.
This was a concession to allow us to continue with the existing beaches, and that's the town beach, the Rumbling Ball Beach, and private beaches.
Then I would ask that
have
if you could,
existed.
let's pursue, town manager, if you would, let's pursue getting an ordinance in that defines what the existing beaches is and the maintenance requirements, and then we
Okay.
be done with it.
Is that the feeling of the rest of the board as well?
I think that's a good
I
idea.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
It is, you know, based on what Ms. Boggs wrote to us, that she identified new sand beaches in her email from October last
So,
year.
so what I'm hearing is that we're going to identify sort of a database of these existing beaches
Yeah, I
that
think
will
we
come
have
in.
it.
So then we have to
We
address
have,
it.
we
Yeah.
have a list, and I've had, you know, we've had some that come up that have argued that it was a beach. And if we can find the evidence that, photographs or find evidence, you know, we'll work with them on that. But yes, we do have that list.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be- make it
Before we
easy.
do any more discussion, I want to applaud you for doing a stop work order, because 20 years ago, the people that did things without following town rules was the town. And I'm happy that we're continuing to put the town's workforce feet to the fire and make sure they do things properly. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any more discussion? Do you hear a motion then?
Yep, Madam Mayor, I move that we approve authorization to allow resanding of the existing town beach.
All right.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then that recommendation is approved unanimously. Thank you so much. Community Development, Zoning, and Planning's been busy this last month for sure. We'll move on to item number 2, which is proposed amendment to the FY 22-23 land use fee schedule. Is that you also,
Yes, it
Mr.
is.
Williams?
It is.
Okay. Got your name on it.
Mhm.
Yes. The resolution, and I'm not sure if I got the copy of that one here or not, but it was for to add a category for those minor structural repairs. And we have already a $240 fee for deck top accessory structures. And so we have added in for that $240 fee would include the deck top accessory structure, it's already there, the minor structural repairs and demolitions.
Okay. Any questions about that?
No.
Discussion?
Yeah. The fee schedule is amended on the back side of the
Yeah.
sheet.
It's on the back of this, yes. So everybody had a chance to look at
Where
that?
does it say?
That was on the back of
On the back.
Yeah.
The back of the.
On the back of this, turn your page over.
Yeah, on the agenda, on the new business, item B, proposed amendment to the fiscal year 22-23
Right.
Uh-huh.
land use, it'd say lake.
I said lake, I beg your
No.
pardon. Oh, it says lake.
land.
Oh, it says land.
You need to, I guess, change that to lake. You need to change that.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Do I need to motion that?
Should have
or-
just said
No.
fee schedule.
Mhm.
Right.
But yeah, it is
Yep.
certainly a lake structure.
That's fine.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 22-23 lake use fee schedule.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And that proposed amendment to the 22-23 lake use fee schedule is approved unanimously. We'll move on to I think this is not you, Mike, so you'll be delighted. It's the birthday boy. The next, item C, is proposed amendments to the following year 23-24 budget calendar. Hank, that's either you or Stephen.
I guess I can handle it just fine unless Steve wants to jump up. Okay. As the mayor alluded to in her report, we've bumped back the calendar for the budget preparation. There are a couple of things that we noted on the budget calendar when we had originally had the council adopt it. Originally, the presentation of the budget was going to be this evening. Because of the situation with Senate Bill 408 and what we've got working on right now, that date is being moved back to next week on the 17th. So it'll still be the manager's presentation of the budget, and at that time, we will set the public hearing and go ahead and do the advertisement for the 28th of June. The other change that we're going to see in this revised budget calendar this evening is originally we were going to propose that the public hearing would be held at the council regular meeting in June. That would have been June 13th. Due to the pushing back of the calendars for what we talked about, that date is now going to be amended as June 28th.
And,
Go ahead.
and I'm showing the 17th meeting at 2 PM and the 28th meeting at 5.
Yes. The 17th will be at 2 o'clock, and then the 28th will be at 5 o'clock.
So everybody mark your calendar, it'll be exciting. I'm sure.
On the 17th, after we finish the presentation and set the public hearing, we're also going to have our first opportunity for council deliberation of the proposed budget. There is a second date, the week after on Wednesday, if we need it, that we will have that calendared as well for another
Also at 2 o'clock.
opportunity.
Yes.
Yes, also at 2.
All right. Any more discussion or questions about that?
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget calendar.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then that proposed amendment to the following year 23-24 budget calendar passed unanimously. We will now move to item D, which is a budget update, and that is Mr. Ford.
I am going to give this to Mr. Ford.
Wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot
That's
pole,
right.
as they say, right?
I thought this was really gonna be a surprise party for me, that y'all wouldn't have a council meeting on my birthday, but
Hey, Steve,
we'll go with it.
surprise.
Surprise. No, I appreciate
And Steve
opportunity
is
to come.
31, just so you know.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be real brief. The values came in today, probably they're like the final report. We're at probably about 12,100,000, which is less than what originally we were looking at. Did I say 12 billion?
Yeah.
That's,
No, that's how.
I'm sorry, 1.2 billion. I apologize. 1.2 billion, whereas originally 1.4 billion. So, but that's still something that we can use as our revenue neutral. That has revenue neutral millage. I'm sorry, tax rate. Millage rate is South Carolina. That revenue neutral rate has been calculated. Not to show my hand before I give it to provide everything to the town manager. Really what Mr. DiArio said to me, or not said to me, but brought out, is that the values, we need to consider that Lake Lure values increased in regards to the whole county, more than any other territory or region of the county. Also, the revenues the other type revenues, state shared revenues, those are pretty static. So, not to show my hand again, I think there needs to be probably some consideration, discussion about what our needs are as a town, what our future needs are as a town, even especially long-term, and to consider that revenue neutral rate and also other options that we have that's at our disposal, and that you can limit. This is the first state I've seen where you can't, where you're not limited, but I also have kept that in mind, that we need to be responsible to our town residents. And I'll answer any questions, but I'll give this as the last part of my update. The department heads that submitted their budgets and also the ones that I've had discussions with, very responsible, nothing surprising. All requests have been related to what their current operations are, what you have given them as their objectives or mission in the town. And so I think they were very responsible. There's nothing that we would say, you're not gonna get that, I think
No
everything's,
crazy stuff.
yeah, so I think everything's open for discussion. And so, very fortunate to work with colleagues that, don't make the job even harder sometimes when you're making tough decisions. And, having Hank and Mr. Dadula to make sure that we're going to have a process where we keep an eye on things, along with the department heads. I think we're in good shape as we go on. And then next year is going to be even better. That's what I'm really looking forward to. Any questions or anything? I hope I you feel like I addressed everything that,
That's
from a
fine.
terms of an
Good
update?
job.
And I will tell you that, if in fact it does happen, that the appraisal will go back to the 2019, there are towns in this county who are gonna be in a very difficult position because they are, underwater in their budgets for the last year. And
Right.
so they're gonna have to make even tougher choices than we do. And I say that to compliment the staff here and the way they have kept their eye on the amount of money that we're spending. Yes, we need a huge amount of money for our infrastructure projects, but that's kind of a separate pot that we get from the day-by-day operations. The town, staff has done a great job of making sure that we're not over, and so we're not in a difficult position when the appraised values are not added. So thank
Right.
everybody for that.
All right.
Thank you, Steve. We'll look forward to the full report.
Sounds
on the
good. I look
17th.
forward to it. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on then to item number E, resolution number 23-05-09B, adopting record retention policy for documents created or maintained pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. And I will leave that to you, Mr.
Yeah,
Perkins.
Steve, I had you in here for these as
Oh,
well.
or to
Yeah,
Mr. Ford.
Okay.
yeah.
Mine says town, but that's okay.
Mhm.
I'm gonna refer to these notes though, so we don't get too far. Excuse me just for a minute. And I don't have my readers, so. What these, and I'll have Hank follow back up with, what I'm presenting, but these policies are, thank you very much. These policies are in regards to our ARPA funds that we have been granted, and just the responsibility of how we report, how we maintain records, also how the procurement process that we will undergo in terms of bidding, not quotes, but bidding, and just how we deal with vendors. And I apologize for not having this handy right here. But what has been presented in your packets is the actual policies that we as a staff will adhere to in terms of procurement, in terms of oversight, and when we need your approval, or when your approval is needed, or when your consent is needed, then it is very clearly stated in those policies about what we will need to have in terms of your authorization. I don't know if you have any specific questions. Hank, yeah.
I can help out with this a little.
Okay, yeah.
The first one that we have at 230509B specifically has to do, as we talked about in the summary, for records retention for documents and maintained pursuant to the ARPA. From what I've read, from looking over these resolutions with Steve, we'll end up having to keep all of these files and the things that are related to our ARPA expenditures, have them. I believe the retention schedule on this is for 5 years. So at some point, we don't know, I'm not exactly, and I'm not sure if Steve is as well, what the start of the 5-year clock is, but at some point, we will be given a time. We'll have to keep everything related to our expenditures and the projects that we spend money for ARPA in the event that we are audited at some point in the future. So this first resolution is about that.
Yeah, and it's not too far off what we're doing. We're consistent with what we're doing now in terms of our, regular county record, I'm sorry, town records and financial records, so.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor, make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-05-09B. Bravo, adopting record retention policy for documents created or maintained pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds.
All right, for a second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
All right.
Steve, the next one's page 100. if that's-
Okay, thank you. They have got my,
And resolution number
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, there we go.
23-05-09B, adopting record retention policy for documents created or maintained pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act / Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, passed unanimously. Hate to have to repeat that if it didn't pass unanimously, right? We'll move on to F, which is resolution number 23-05-09C, adopting non-discrimination policy.
Right.
I'm guessing that's you?
I can do that, and
Or-
Steve will, but
or Steve.
what this is right now is this is another one of these resolutions that we are required to pass, basically adopting a non-discrimination policy for the town of Lake Lure. On the cover page for this, on page 101 in your packet, you'll see that this addresses Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act, Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 68, and then Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 73, the Age Discrimination Act of 1975, and then Title II of the Americans with Disability Act 1990. At the end of this resolution, we're in essence adopting a policy for non-discrimination that addresses all of these sections, and this is how we are going to treat the business and how we relate to the ARPA fund expenditures.
All right.
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 230509, Charlie, adopting non-discrimination policy.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then resolution number 23-05-09C, adopting non-discrimination policy, passes unanimously. And I think you can just stay up there, Mr. Ford.
Yes, yeah, and I
Because
appreciate
item
that.
G-
I realize that we're doing each resolution
We
as
are.
a separate item, so,
So resolution,
Yeah.
item G, resolution number 23-05-09D, adopting allowable cost and cost principles policy for expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act / coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds.
yes.
You're on, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, and this is more reflective of my opening comments regarding the actual expenditures and what are allowable costs. And in terms of expenditures, the approval process that we will need to go through. And so that's what this policy or resolution allows us to codify.
All right, questions? Anyone questions?
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 230509D, adopting allowable costs and cost principles policy for expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 23-05-09D, adopting allowable cost and cost principles policy for expenditures of American Rescue Plan Act / coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, passes unanimously. We will now move on to item H, resolution number 23-05-09E, adopting eligible use policy for the expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act / coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. Mr. Ford.
Right. Okay, this, as opposed to the prior resolution that discusses allowable costs, this talks about the use, what uses are eligible. So as opposed to what's allowable cost, this is regarding the actual use of it. Make sure that we're using it the way, in the proper context of what we applied for.
Any questions?
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 230509E, adopting eligible use policy for the expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act, coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, resolution number 23-05-09E, adopting eligible use policy for the expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act / coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, passes unanimously. I think you're possibly
That
off
is
the hook,
wonderful.
but you might not want to leave quite yet.
Okay.
Is the next one you, Mr. Perkins, reservoir drain valve bid update, or is
No,
that Mr. Dudula?
this is gonna be Mr. Didula, and
Well,
at this
we're
point
delighted
is,
to invite you to the podium, Mr.
and
Dudula.
this is informational, so Mike's just gonna give you a summary.
So the previous resolution, basically make a resolution we're following federal law.
Yeah, it's word for word.
I'll keep it high level, but we have received bids, as a lot of people are already aware, for the reservoir drain valves. We've reviewed, myself, our group internally, and our engineer, we've reviewed both bids. We've talked to both firms, and we're in the process of recommending that we go ahead and award the lowest bidder to the contractor lowest bid.
All right, and I know there's a special meeting on Wednesday to discuss
Yes, ma'am.
this.
Tomorrow, we're gonna go over this recommendation in detail and have further conversations about schedules and just the details of what we're doing.
All right, thank you then for the information, we appreciate that. We'll move on then to item J, resolution number 23-05-09F, authorizing the town manager to approve exemptions from Minnie Brooks Act in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes 143-64.32. Mr. Perkins.
Yes, that general statute for Mini Brooks, it's called Mini Brooks, and what it does is it for certain types of work, mainly professional services like engineering, surveying, those things. They tell you and tell us as the town that we may not select services based on price alone. Services being rendered in this category are supposed to be done through a selection process from the most qualified provider for that, or qualification-based selection. The resolution that we have before you this evening, there is a provision that allows, if you have these types of services and they're going to be less than $50,000, that allows the jurisdiction to be able to select people without going through the qualification-based services. So this would have been something like, perfect case in point for is we need a surveyor, and we need to have a surveyor run out, and the survey is gonna cost, $1,000 or a few $1,000. We have the ability to then to go through the exemption posting for it, and then go forward and move forward with that. The process and what we've got for council consideration is that we're going to have the council approve this resolution, basically authorizing this exemption process to happen. The exemption process will be happening at the staff level, where the town manager, myself, would be filing an exemption letter stating what project we're exempting someone from, and the reasons if it's applicable, and I'll put that exemption letter on file in the clerk's office. And at that point, then that would also go as a part of the file if anybody wants to know, how did you select these people? We'll have the paperwork documentation. We'll also have the resolution adopted by the council acknowledging that they know that this practice is happening. So that's basically what we get to with this adoption of this resolution.
So, town manager, so we don't have to do this case by case. This gives you a process to go by it every time, so we don't have to make a specific exemption for a specific purpose every time.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's contemplated that the best scenario would have had the council to do that. It's not required.
Yeah.
So you can do this at the staff level for the exemption issuance. What we came up with this one is a transparency piece. It's so the council is on record knowing that these exemptions have a possibility to be granted at staff level, and that you're aware of it, and that we're making that practice available and knowledgeable for any of the public.
Got it. Perfect. That's good.
Perfect. Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 230509F, authorizing the town manager to approve exemptions from Mini Brooks Act in accordance with NCGS 143, TAC 64, TAC 32.
Second?
Second.
All right. Then resolution number 23-05-09F, authorizing the town manager to approve exemptions from Mini Brooks Acts in accordance with NCGS 143-64.32 is passed unanimously. We will now move on to item K, which is paying contract approval.
We have, Mr. Dean Lindsay is unable to join us for a previous conflict for it. We have his administrative assistant, Miss Andy Ogle, who is here. The department went out and received bids for paving work for this, I guess, this spring. And the lowest apparent bidder was $117,075 with Scott Construction. Miss Andy is here if anyone has any questions related to this.
Andy, is this the guy who's done this before? I couldn't
Yeah.
remember the name of the company.
Yes,
so- Should, okay.
Yeah, Tracy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
I think I would know that name, but I didn't remember.
You should know that.
The only question I have, is this all the remaining Powell bill money for this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Well, this expenditure
Yeah.
is over all the Powell bill funds that we have been granted.
Yeah, so this is
This is it.
for this fiscal year,
Yes.
this is it, this is the final I gotcha, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to do it quick.
Get it
Yeah,
done quick,
hurry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hurry up.
Hurry, Andy,
All right,
go.
good. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the paving contract with Scott Construction Incorporated.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
And the paving contract is approved unanimously. We will move then to item L, which was added in as an amendment, which is Labella Task 6 proposed revenue. And I will turn to Mr. Dadula for that.
So Labella's has a Phase 6, which is pretty much for doing work on the existing wastewater treatment plant. There's a new device that we want to get added to that. It's basically a belt press and some other equipment. And what Labella's saying is we have money left in that account that we haven't spent. So we're just gonna add 2 more line items onto Phase 6. So we got a paper trail.
All right. Actually, we got 2 line items unspent. We're going to replace those line items.
Correct, replace, I'm sorry,
Yes.
replace those line items, so.
Any questions, any
No,
other
it's good.
discussion?
It's good.
No, it's
Do I
good.
hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Labella Task 6, proposed revision 2.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then the Labella Task 6 proposed revision 2 is approved unanimously. And that is the end of new business. We are going to be going into closed session now, and there's no other items on the agenda after closed session, so I don't want you to wait with bated breath for us to come back. You're certainly welcome. We thank you and appreciate your coming. You're certainly, William, invited to enjoy Miss Creegy's delightful refreshments there. Do I hear a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session in accordance with General Statutes 143-318-11A1 concerning information made confidential by law, and General Statutes 143-318.11A3 for attorney-client privilege or legal claims.
For a second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Then we will go into closed session. We'll take a 5-minute break.
Yep.